Morning guys, nice to see you all again. Today's absolutely bucketing down outside and storming, so I've got no excuses left not to get this video done. We're going to show you how to do the swipe transition that you would have seen a few times in the intro. This is fairly easy to do, but you are going to need After Effects. So if you don't have that, I suggest signing up for Adobe's Creative Cloud membership, as it's extremely good value for money and I use it almost every day. We're also going to create a preset at the end, so you don't have to start from scratch every time you want to do this transition. So let's get started. Okay, so first you want to start in Premiere Pro and you want to select your two clips to transition between. I've got two clips from when I was in Colorado in one of the wildlife reserves. So you want to drag your clips onto the timeline and place them in the order that you want them. I always play them back just to double check that there's no issues and that they both look good. Once you're happy, highlight the two clips and select Render as After Effects Composition. This will now open After Effects and ask you to create a new project, which I'm just going to call Swipe Transition. Once open, you'll see your two clips down on the left here, which you can play back on the After Effects timeline. Now what we want to do is create an adjustment layer by control clicking in the bottom left box, and you're going to go to New and Adjustment Layer. As you see, we now have a new clip on the timeline. This is where we're going to do all of our effects and not directly onto the two clips. So first things first, you want to go up to the Effects and Presets search bar and type in Motion Tile. Click and drag Motion Tile onto the adjustment layer and then open up Effect Controls. We need to set the output width and height to 700 and check the Mirror Edges box. Next, search for Transform in the Effects and Presets box and drag that onto the adjustment layer. Now we need to add some keyframes onto the horizontal axis position in the transform effect. This is what's going to make the clip slide left or right, so click on the arrow next to the adjustment layer clip and click on the effects arrow as well as the transform arrow. Make sure it's the transform that's inside the effects tab and not the transform that's on its own. Now you want to go to the center of both of your clips and turn on the position keyframes. So what a keyframe does is automate an action without you having to physically touch it in the program. So when you turn on the position keyframes, which is done by clicking the stopwatch next to the position inside the transform effect, it'll automatically create your first keyframe at the center of your two clips. Before we start changing any values and sliding the clip, we want to create a few more keyframes. So move one frame to the left and create your next keyframe by clicking this small diamond next to the stopwatch. Then move another 4 frames to the left and create another keyframe. Go back to the center of the clips and move 5 frames to the right and create your last keyframe. This is the point where you decide which way you want the screen to swipe. So looking at my two clips, the second clip pans to the right, so I want the screen to swipe to the left so the motion continues in the direction to the right. This might sound a bit contradictory, but you'll see what I mean at the end. So go to the first keyframe and you'll see that the value says 960 by 540 in the position section. The first of these two numbers is the horizontal axis, so that's what we want to automate. We're going to leave this keyframe as is because that's the starting point. So move to the second keyframe and click the horizontal axis or the 960. You can now change that number, so making it smaller is going to move the screen left and making it bigger is going to move the screen to the right. Like I said, we want to go to the left, so we're going to change that number to 0. The clip should now look a bit weird and half of it should be out of frame with the motion tile effect mirroring the other half. Move to the third keyframe and this is where the second clip comes into play. To continue the motion to the left, we need to change this value to 1920 and press enter. The second clip should now look like the first, with half the clip being out of frame and the motion tile mirroring the other half. As we created the fourth keyframe at how the clip looks normally, we don't have to change that as this is the end point for the transition and those values should still be at 960 by 540. Your clips should now swipe left when played back but will look a little flat and average, so the next step is to ramp up to the transition and out of it. So highlight your 4 keyframes and click Animation, Keyframe Assistant and click Easy Ease. You now want to open the graph editor, which is this button here. Again, select the first keyframe and you'll see that 2 yellow circles appear. Drag the first one all the way to the right and then the second one all the way to the right as well. Go to the third and fourth and instead drag them all the way to the left. As you can see, the graph now ramps up to a point and then back down again. Exit the graph editor by clicking the same button and play your clips back. They should now ramp in and out and will look a whole lot smoother. The last step is to add motion blur to the transition, so search in the effects and presets for motion blur and drag the CC Force motion blur onto the adjustment layer. Because we only want the motion blur to apply to the transition, we need to use keyframes again, so go to the same point as the first keyframe from the transform effect and click the stopwatch next to motion blur samples to create your first keyframe. Change the value of that keyframe to 1. Now go forwards 1 frame and create the second keyframe by clicking that little diamond again and change that value to 8. Go to the point of the last keyframe from the transform effect and create another keyframe and change that value to 1. Then go backwards 1 frame and change that value to 8. What this does is as the transition starts, the motion blur kicks in. Because the motion blur effect uses a lot of memory, I suggest pulling the adjustment layer's start and end point to where the keyframes start and end so that you can now play it back easily and smoothly. That's the transition complete, and you can see by playing it back you have a smooth swipe transition. Before we finish, you want to create a preset so you don't have to go through the whole process again. To do this, inside the adjustment layer's effect controls, hold down Shift and click all 3 of the effects, and then go to Animation and Save Preset Animation. Call it whatever you like, so mine obviously is a swipe left, I'm going to call that swipe left, and then click Save. You can now search for your preset in the effects and presets and drag it onto any clip or adjustment layer in the future. So that's it for this video today, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like to see more of this kind of thing, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Peace!